Okay, good to welcome everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us for the learning of Teres Hashem. Be'ezras Hashem is both sponsored by A.B. Spry for Nachas from the whole family and by Michal Avram Chavin. We welcome in A.B. Spry and Ben Zion Cohn and Michal and Saba. Mo Kushner back at home. Aaron Swade, Shimon Klein, Shimon Deer, Bruce Eisenberg, Dr. Block, Shelley Zeitlin, Irving Fishbaum, Menachem Yamansky, Yitzi Fuchs, Dr. Guy, Moshe Lehman, Chaim Braun, Ilya Shutman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Naftali Javelin, Mati, Rabbi Kranz, Abe Arbach, Yitzi Muller. And here in Shul, we have joining us Barish and Michal Avram, David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon. We are holding by the new Mishnah 2 lines from the wide lines on Daf Tzadik Gimel Amud Aleph. New Mishnah 2 lines. Kaititz Adam, we learned this already. This is the source. Kaititz Adam, a person could stipulate with his employer that I won't eat while I'm working, and you should give me extra pay. He could do that al yidei atzmai for himself, al yidei b'nai b'tag dalim for his older son or daughter who he's supporting, al yidei avdei v'shivchas agdalim. He could also stipulate that his servants or maidservants that are adults will not eat, and he should get paid more, al yidei ishtay, or for his wife who he's supporting. Because they have knowledge. But he cannot stipulate on behalf of his son or his daughter when they're minors, because we said that the allotment is mina shemayim from heaven, and they are not bardas to be meichelet, nor for his male or female Canaanite slaves. He could also not stipulate for his animal that he should get paid more and he should be able to muzzle the animal. He can't even do that with his own animal. If I hire Shimon to work with my 4th year produce, but I had stipulated, Shimon, by the way, it's 4th year produce, which can't be eaten until it's brought up to Yerushalayim, then Hari Elu Lo Yochlu. Then he doesn't eat, because he was hired with the awareness that he won't be able to eat. But Im Lo Yodian, if I didn't inform him that the field is in its 4th year, so he was expecting to eat, so then paid I have to redeem the netter of I umachilon and allow him to eat. Nisparsu igulav, if let's say my cake of figs unraveled, or nispatchu chev yosef, or my sealed casks opened up. Now here already they were nischayev and meiser, and when they're nischayev and meiser, the worker can't eat from it. So Hari Elu Lo Yochel, that's talking about where Shimon knew that that's what I was hiring him for. But Im Lo Yodian, but if I didn't inform him, and it could be a situation where the dates were never made into cake, so that they were not chayiv and meiser, and it could be a situation where the wine did not have the foam skimmed off it yet, and therefore it's not chayiv and meiser, so then I have to give him to eat. Shomrei Peiros, guards of fruit, Ochlen Mehilchas Medina, they only eat because that's the minig hamakam, avaloi minat Torah, but not biblically. Now, the simple explanation of this means that if, let's say, Shimon is guarding fruit that's still attached to the ground, so we know that he's not entitled to eat that which is attached to the ground unless it's a finishing process. So since guarding the fruit is not a finishing process, he wouldn't be entitled, but he's entitled because of the convention of the location. It is the minig hamakam. Now, actually, this is up to interpretation, because I'm assuming that a shomrei peiros is considered guarding, is considered working, And therefore, what's the reason why Shimon can't eat? He's a worker, because it's not a finishing process. There's another possibility, and that is that guarding is not considered working at all. It's too passive to be considered working. And then he wouldn't be entitled because he's not working. Only a worker is entitled. So now the Gemara tells us two ways to learn the Mishnah. Let's see it inside. And it's good to see Philippe joining us, and Dr. Guy, and I think we've just been joined by Nachman. Good to have Nachman joining us. 29 Zoomers on this Motzi Shabbos marathon. Great to have everybody. So Shomrei Peres, watchman of fruit, when doesn't he eat biblically? That's only if he guards gardens and orchards, because they're still attached to the ground, and it's not a finishing process, so that's why it's only because of Minig Medina. But if he's guarding presses and piles before they're not Mechayiv and Meiser, then he's entitled Midaraisa to eat. Then Oichlem and Atayra. Why? Because Kasava Rav is of the opinion that Mishamer Ka'isa Meisadami, that guarding it is considered like working, and therefore, if it's detached and it's not Chayiv Maisa yet, then the Chiyuv would be Daraisa to allow him to eat. Shmuel says, no. Shmuel disagrees. Shmuel says that a watchman is not considered working. It's too passive to be considered working. It's only when does a watchman get als minig Medina? That's if it's detached produce. Detached produce in the press, in piles, where if it would be working, it would be chayiv d'oraisa to feed him. So then, where it's passive, it's als minig mamakam. Aval shemri ginas pardesim, but shemri ginas watchmen in gardens and orchards, where if it would be work, they wouldn't be entitled to eat because it's passive, it's not working. So then here, where I'm saying if it would be aval shemi ginas pardesim, where if it would be work, they wouldn't be entitled to eat. So when it's passive, they're not even entitled to eat Meminig Medina. Why? Because Shmuel holds that watching is not considered work at all. So therefore, in the case where it's detached produce, where if he was doing malacha, then he would be entitled to eat midaraisa. Then if it's passive, he's entitled to eat midrabanan. I mean, because of Minig Medina. So that the Gemara asks, how could Shmuel say that watching is not considered work? The one who guards the paraduma, the red cow. Now you know if you do work with the red cow, you become tummy. So it says if somebody watches the paraduma, the red cow, mitame begadim, his clothing gets contaminated. But wait, if it's not work, why does his clothing get contaminated? If he amrit like Shmuel that misham alav ma'isa, that watching is not considered work, then lavka is ma'isa dummy, then amai mitame begadim. Why does it become tummy? No, there it's only us gzeira. Gzeira shema yozes ba'eva. We're afraid that when watching it, he might move something, and then of course move something in the animal. The animal made a turn the wrong way, so he will redirect it when he's watching it. So then he would be tamei. So we say he's always tamei. Masav Rav Kahana, Hamishamer Arba v'Chamesh Mikchois. Let's say Mel is watching 4 or 5 cucumber fields. He's a multitasker. So he's watching, as we welcome in Stephen Holtzman for our 30th Zoomer of the evening. So what happened over here is that Mel is watching 4 or 5 cucumber patches at the same time. So we don't say that he could eat only from one of them. We don't say that. We don't say that he could eat. We don't say that he could eat only from one of the gardens. It's not fair. He's watching 4 or 5 gardens, so he has to eat proportionally. If it's 5 gardens, he has to eat 1/5 from each garden. What's going on over here? Having some trouble here. Internet trouble. I don't know what's going on over here. I'm not sure what's going on over here.
Would it be worth rebooting, you think?
No.
Okay, we see you again.
I know. Were you hearing me the whole time?
Up until about 90 seconds ago, and then your screen froze for a bunch of us.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know what's happening. Both my phone.
You're just giving the dogma. Let's say.
Yeah, I know. I'm just worried what's going on over here because I both my phone and the internet all of a sudden gave me trouble. I don't know why. Okay, it might be some local construction. Okay, let's hope that that's all it goes. So the Mel is watching 4 or 5 cucumber fields, so he said that he can't take cucumbers. Eddie Chazan is coming in for our 31st Zoomer of the evening. Now that's nice. That's nice. So anyway, he can't take from one of the cucumber fields. That's not 4. He has to take proportionally from each one. He can't fill his stomach from one of the fields. From each field he eats l'fi cheshbon. He eats proportionately. But wait a second. The Gemara assumes that over here the cucumbers were not cut. And if they were not cut, then according to Shmuel, he's not entitled even miminig amatina. He's not even entitled from the local custom. Why does Mel get to eat? Rav Shimi Bar Ashi, it's talking about kurin shanu. It's talking about where the cucumbers were already cut. So the detached produce, if it was considered a work, then Mel would be able to eat midaraisa because it was not chayiv and meiser. And therefore, even though Mishamer is not kaisa meiser, he eats miminig amadina. Says the Gemara, but wait a second. If cucumbers, v'aloi nigmar melachtan l'meiser, they're already chayiv and meiser. Once they're chayiv and meiser, you're not entitled. Even if he was doing work, you're not entitled to eat. Says the Gemara, like we learned earlier, shaloi nitel pike shalem. The blossom was not removed from them, and we said before the blossom is removed from them, they're not yet nischayiv and meiser. So if he would be working, Mel would be entitled to eat midaraisa, and therefore, since he's watching, he's entitled to eat because of minig medina. Amar Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi says, kavose de Shmuel mistavra. It's reasonable to assume, like Shmuel, that there's some cases where the watchman is allowed to eat, and some cases that he's not allowed to eat. The Tanan, the elu oichlin min ha-Torah, the following eat biblically. Ha'oisa b'mechubel karka, if you work with something attached to the ground, b'shas gemar malacha, at a finishing process, or b'tolish, and when it's detached, before it's chayiv and meiser. Now, from the fact that it says oichlin min ha-Torah, Michlal de Ika de Loika Achel Min HaTorah Ela Mehilchas Medina, where he doesn't eat Min HaTorah only because of local custom, and that would be in the case where he's watching it in something where if it would be work, he would be allowed to eat it. Like, for example, if he's watching when it's detached from the ground. Ema Seifa, ve'elu she'ein oichlin. The following cannot eat. Now, what does it mean cannot eat? Ma ein oichlin. Ilay she'ein oichlin min ha'Torah, ela mihilchas Medina, but because of minig ha'makom, that was inferred from the ration. High narration. Ela lav, that there's a category, she'ein oichlin loy min ha'Torah, v'loy mihilchas Medina. Where it's watching, which is not a maisa, and it's something where he would biblically not be able to eat. So where he would biblically not be able to eat, so if he was doing work, then when he's watching, he can't even eat from local custom, which is umayniu oisa b'mechubel karka, where he's doing with mechubel karka b'shosha en gemar malacha. So where it's mechubel karka, where it's not a finishing process, like he watches in a garden or an orchard. The kol shechein shemrei ginus upardesis. If he's working by something attached to the ground, which is not a finishing process, so there he doesn't eat not from biblically and not from local custom. The kol shechein shemrei ginus upardesis, and surely when he's watching gardens and orchards, which watching is not considered a maisa, he doesn't even eat from minig hamakam, which is the opinion of Shmuel. And now we move over to the law of Shomrim. Abba Shomrim, there are four classes of guardians. Shomer chinam, a person that watches something for free. Vashoyel, if, let's say, somebody borrowed something. Noisei sacher, a paid watchman. And vasoicher, and a renter. So now, the Mishnah tells us, Shomer chinam nishba alakol. Shomer chinam swears about everything. If he says it's stolen, he swears that it was stolen. If he says it's lost, he swears that it's lost. If it was died, he swears that it dies. He's exempt from everything, as long, of course, as he's not negligent. Vashoyel, one who borrows, mishalem esakol, he pays for everything, because he pays even if it's an einus, even if it died, even if it was an armed robber. The noisei sacher vasoicher, the paid watchman and the renter, nishboin al hashvura v'al hashvuya v'al hamesa. He swears if it was fractured, or if it was captured by armed bandits, or if it died, because the paid watchman and the renter is not chayav for an oinus, but he pays if it was lost or if it was stolen by a thief that's not armed. Now, Mantana Arba Shomrim, who holds these four guardians? Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Avur, Ramehi. So the Gemara says, what? Everybody holds these four classes. Amar Rav Nachman, Mikid Lesle Arba Shomrim. Who doesn't hold that there's four classes? A Shomer chinam, a Shomer sacher, a renter, and a shoyel. Amar Hachi Kaminalach. We're saying over here that a renter is the same as a paid watchman. Man tona soicher kenoisi sacher, who holds that a renter is the same as a paid watchman? Rameiri. It's the opinion of Rameir. Says the Gemara, but we learned Rameir the opposite. Rameir ipachashaminolei. The Tanya soicher ketzad b'shalom, a renter, how does he pay? Rameir imikashayin mechilam, like an unpaid watchman. Rabbi Yehuda imikashayin sacher. Says the Gemara, well, Rabba bar Ravua ipcha ketani. Rava has it the other way around, that the renter, Rameir holds as a Shomer sacher. Says the Gemara, but then there's really three categories. There's a Shomer chinam, there's a shoyel, and the noisei sacher and the Shomer and the sacher is the same. So it's really three categories. Iachi arba, why four? Shloishin, because the sacher is the same halacha as the Shomer sacher. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, well, what we mean is Dalid Shomrim. There are four categories, v'dineyem shloisha, and their rule is three, because the renter and the paid watchman is the same. Now the Gemara tells us 2 lines from the bottom of Daf Tzadik Gimel Amud Aleph, starting off the week in a very beautiful way. What a beautiful way to start a week with the learning of Teres Hashem. 2 big blot, finishing a parak and starting a parak. It's really, really very exciting, Rabbi said. It's really great to have everybody. And a very good way, by the way, people say, it's on Shavuos, I got to get ready for Shavuos. No better way to get ready for Shavuos than this, I'll tell you. No better way than to learn like we're learning now. Says the Gemara, Hahu Raya, there was a shepherd, Davikarei Chiyusa, who's the shepherd? Who has a guilty look on his face? Yeah, I'd say Philippe looks pretty guilty to me, right? So Philippe is shepherding animals on the bank of Nar Papa. Sorig Chodeminayu, one of the animals slipped, Vinoflis Lamaya, and fell into the water. These were Dr. Block's animals, and they fell into the water. One of them fell into the water and died. So also the Kamei de Rabba, they came before Rabba, Opatre, and Rabba says that Philippe is off the hook. He's exempt. Amar, he said, what should I have done? The bottom line is that Rabba gave the explanation that, look, that's the conventional way. What could he do? And this is true even though Philippe is a paid watchman. Now, a paid watchman is chayav b'gneva v'aveda, but Rabbah said that since Philippe gave conventional protection, it's considered an einus. Amalei Abaya, so now Abaya says to Rabbah, he's tried to milk Rabbah, how far does this go? Philippe was watching the sheep, and he took a break and he went into the city for a coffee, the way shepherds do. Hachanami the Potter would be Philippe Potter. Amalayin, yeah. And gonna persabidna the gonna inche if at noon he took a siesta for a half an hour, like the shepherds take a siesta. Hachanami the Potter, would he be Potter? Amalayin, yeah. So Rabbah really gives a lot of leeway, even though Philippe is paid, but as long as Philippe did things in the standard, he was on the curve, he's going to be Potter. Eisvei. So the Gemara asks, we learned, Eluhein einsin shesaymer sacha Potter aleim. What's an einus that a hired watchman like Philippe is Potter? Kigain v'tipol shva, where they fell on them, the enemy from Shva, v'tikachem, and captured them, as hanorim hikulu fi charev, and the youth they hit with swords. In other words, only armed robbers. Amalei, so he said, no, there it's talking about the watchmen of the city. The watchmen of the city, they can't take a nap. They can't go into town. Hasam b'chazani masa, there where lives are at stake, there's a bigger expectation. Eisvei, ad mosei shemes sacher chayav lishmar, how far does Philippe have to go? Ad kedei, what Yaakov told Lavan, hayisi b'yoyim achalani charev, in the day I watched even though I was consumed by heat, b'kerach balayla, and even in the bitter of the cold on the night. Amalei, so he says, no, hasam nami b'chazani masa. It's only talking about watchmen of the city. It's a matter of life and death, so you can't shirk your post because you're too hot or because you're too cold. But the Gemara says this is talking about Yaakov. Yaakov wasn't a watchman for the city. So, Amalei, what's the matter?
Yeah, it happened again.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, we're in trouble here. I don't know what's going on tonight.
We missed a whole bunch.
I know when you missed. I heard the uh-oh. But I don't know what's going on over here. Anybody that lives in Fairway should come down to the shul right away. It says the Gemara.
There's lots of room, Tom.
Yeah, there's lots of room here. Can you hear me, everybody, now?
Come down to my house and hear.
Yeah.
Now what was going on with that typical of the watchman?
Yeah, I know where I'm up to.
All right, thank you, bye.
Amalei, so the Gemara says, the Gemara says, what, Atu Yaakov Avinu Chazan Masa, it says Yaakov Avinu was there in the heat and in the freezing cold, and he wasn't a watchman of the city. Says the Gemara, no, Yaakov Avinu was telling Lavan that I did extra shmira like a guard of a city. The Amalei Lavan, he told Lavan, not shalach netiris yiserta, I did extra guarding kichazani masa, like it's expected from a guard of the city. So Esvei, again Abaye is attacking Rabbah, who is so easy on Philippe. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, Philippe, excuse me, but this is Dr. Block's stuff, but Esvei, Roya Shoya Roya, shepherd is pasturing. V'niach edra yuvola ir, he leaves the flock and comes into the city. Ba ze'ev taraf, if a wolf comes and tears it apart, or ba ari v'daris, or a lion comes and rips apart the animal. Ein oimrim, we don't say that, well, if Philippe would have been there, he would have saved it. We don't say that. We don't just say a blanket statement. Rather, we assess if Philippe was there, would he have been able to save it? If he could have saved it, he's chayiv because he abandoned the flock. But if not, potter. So you see, asks Abaya that we make Philippe chayiv when he abandons the flock. My love, the old be'idna daily and she. Isn't this true? Even when he came into the city, when conventionally people come into the city for a coffee break, says, well, loy, the old be'idna deloy aliyal she. He came in when it wasn't proper to leave. So the Gemara says, ihachi, if so, even if he wouldn't have been able to save the animal, why should he be potter? Am I potter? Initially, it was a pshia for abandoning the flock. Even if afterwards it was an inus, he should be chayiv. Says the Gemara, no, you know why Philippe left? The shama kol aryeh va'ol. He heard the lion, and that's why he ran away. Philippe is into preservation of self. He heard the animal, and he ran away. So the Gemara says, Ihachi, if so, what do you mean, I'm the say? We evaluate. What should he have done? Says the Gemara, he should have summoned help. There's a local shepherds guild, they help each other. He should have said, guys, hurry up, I got a lion. Says the Gemara, then even if he's a shomer chinam, he should be chayiv, because it's negligence. Says the Gemara, if you're an unpaid watchman, but you should have gotten help with shepherds and sticks, so why do you only say a shomer sacher? Shomer chinam b'chinam. An unpaid watchman is only expected to ask for free help. Shomer sacher b'sacher. But Philippe, who was paid, he's supposed to offer people, come, I'll pay you, help out. V'ad kama, how much is Philippe expected to offer the people? Says the Gemara, ad kidei demeim, until the value of the flock. Says the Gemara, but if you mean that Philippe has to take it out of his own pocket? That in a case of an oinus, he has to take out money from his own pocket. Says, well, no, Philippe is going to get reimbursed. He'll get reimbursed. So the Gemara says if he gets reimbursed, and the owner is going to have to pay the value of the flock, so what did the owner gain? If the flock is worth $1,000, and Philippe paid $1,000 to save the flock, so then what did the owner gain? Why put Philippe through this whole rigmarole? Says the Gemara, if he's paying the full value of the flock for people to come and save the flock, what does he benefit? Says Gemara, the difference is that the owner of the sheep already trained these sheep, and therefore he'd rather have his sheep than have to buy new sheep. So if you could save his sheep even for the full value of the flock, it's worth it for him. Or for the fact that he's going to have to now go out and buy another flock, which is going to cost him a lot of money, so therefore it's better for him that Philippe even spend the value of the flock to save the flock. Now the Rabbah, as we said, was very lenient on Philippe. Rabbah has a thing for Philippe. He likes him, But it's not so. It's not universal. Rav Chisda v'Rabba Rav Huna le'svir l'hohad Rabbah. They don't hold that Philippe could say, "What could I do? It was slippery by the beach. What could I do? I had to take a siesta." Says, they hold the Imre lahachi Yehovah la'agra. I tell Philippe, you know why I paid you? L'inturla netirti yisera, to guard a good guardianship. Otherwise, there's a lot of workers, and therefore, if something happens, Philippe is chai. Now, here's an example of those who argue. Bar Ada Suvalah. Bar Ada was a porter, and he was transporting animals on the bridge of Norish, and one animal butted the other animal and pushed it off the bridge to its death in the water. One animal pushed the other animal and threw it into the water to its death. Also, the Kamidra Papa, remember we said there are those that argue with Rabbah. They came before Rav Papa. Chayve, Rav Papa said that he has to pay for the animal. Amalei, so he said to him, what could I do? They're animals. They behave like animals. That's the meaning of that people behave like animals. They're behaving like animals. What do you expect me to do? You should have crossed them single file, that they shouldn't push one another. Should have been crossed single file. Amalei, so he asked Rav Papa, do you know that that's the custom of local people, of your brethren, of our brethren, that they pass it one by one? I mean, isn't that too much? Amalei, so he said to him, your predecessors already screamed, we don't pay attention. Rather, you were paid money, you have to do it in the Tirusi Yisayr. Now we have an incident with a Shomer Chinam. This is a big chiddush. We're talking about a Shomer Chinam now. Aivu afkid kisna beirunya. Aivu deposited some linen, some flax, by Runya. And Runya was a Shomer Chinam. Ozul Shabu Shamte Minei. Shabu, who was an armed robber. Not just a robber, an armed robber. Took it from him. Now, L'Saif, Hukar Aganim, they realized that it was Shabu, and therefore it could be recovered in court. Also, the Kamid Rav Nachman, so Runya said, look, I'm a Shomer Chinam. Let the owner recover it in court. But Rav Nachman Chayve, Rav Nachman was Mechayev Runya to pay the owner for the flax and then recover it from Shabu. So the Gemara says, Lema Pligid Ravuna Baravin. Isn't this not like Rav Huna bar Avin? The Shalach Rav Huna bar Avin, nignava ba'ainis. If, let's say, there was a armed robber, v'akachuker, and then we discovered who the robber was, im shaymer chinam, if he's an unpaid watchman, then Ratza Nishba, he could swear that it was an armed robber and he gets off the hook. Ratza Oisi Maidin, or he could pay the one for the item and then recover it from the armed robber. But Im Shaymer Sacharu, if he's a paid watchman, Oisi Maidin, then he has to deal with the robber. Ve'enoi Nishba, he can't swear and get off the hook. But the bottom line is it says the Shomer Chinam has the option to say, look, I'm an unpaid watchman. It was an armed robber, I'm swearing and I'm off the hook. So why did Runya have to deal with Shabu? Rava says that's because Runya was a Pesheya. Runya was negligent, because when the armed robber was there, policemen were right on the block. So he should have yelled, police! Rava Hasam Gavre de Parmuska. There were policemen there. If he would have raised his voice, they would have came and saved it. And therefore, since he did it, he's a Pesheya, and that's why he has to deal to recover it from Shabu. Says the new Mishnah. Ze'ev echad eina einis. Back to Philippe. He's watching Dr. Black's animals. If it's one wolf, it's not an einus. Shnei zevim, two wolves, it's an einus. Rabbi Yudaimer, b'shas mishlachas zevim, if it's a time where there is a divine decree, wolves are behaving ferociously, then it's an einus even if it's one wolf. Then af zev echad einus. Shnei kalavim ein einus. Two dogs are not an einus. A guy like Philippe with sticks, he's not cowed by two dogs. If the two dogs come from one direction, ein einus. If they're coming from two different directions, that's too hard even for a brave man like Philippe. That's an einus. Halistein. If it's an armed bandit, harizeh anis. Ha'ari a lion, hadayv a bear, vanomer, a leopard, habardalus. A bardalus is either a hyena, a panther, or a polecat. Vanochash and a snake. These are ferocious animals. Hari elu einis. But a Mosai, when is Philippe off the hook? Bisman shabo me'aleim, where he was in a safe pasture area, and they suddenly jumped upon him. But if Philippe went to a dangerous place, he took the flock to a place where there are beasts and bandits, then then Philippe is chayav for wandering into a dangerous area. If the animal died in the normal fashion, then harizeh einus. So if he's a shomer sacher, he's pater. However, sikfo meis, if Philippe beat it and he died, then ein einus. Then it's not an einus. Also, l'rashay tzukin, if the animal overpowered Philippe and went to a cliff and fell off the cliff, harizeh einus. V'nafla, harizeh einus. Hella l'rashay tzukin, but if Philippe brought them to the mountaintop, he shouldn't have gotten near a cliff. V'nafla mesa, then ein einus, then he would have to pay. Philippe, I hope you're taking notes over here. Now,
actually, why should he be clear of the whole 1,000 for the flock if one lion is only going to kill one sheep? All right? Why should he be? If he has to hire or pay the other shepherds to come rescue, one lion is not going to take the whole flock. Why should he be clear?
This was a particularly hungry lion that would have ate the whole flock.
You think so? It's not typical.
Well, I don't know. I would have to talk to a zoologist.
I mean,
now,
you would think, right?
No, I wouldn't think. It's talking about an amount of the flock that the lion would eat. It's a very hungry.
The wolf is going to take the whole flock.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the flock had 3 animals. Now.
The rest would run away. All right.
What do you say, Rabbi Kranz?
Maybe the rest would run away and get lost. They'd lose everything.
What would if they either get lost or they were eaten?
Right, so I'm saying even if he attacks one, the rest are not going to just stand there.
Vatanya says the Brisa, we learned that Ze'ev Echad Einus, that one wolf is an Einus. Says the Gemara, that's talking about where it's a divine decree. It's talking about where there's a divine decree. Rabbi Yehuda, Halistem Harizeh Einus. Now, first the Gemara thinks it's a regular bandit. So why is a regular bandit an Einus? Philippe is a big guy. It's one against one. Amai, look at Gavra, lahade Gavra. Why is it an Einus? Amarab, Balistim, Azuya. No, it's an armed robber. Now here's the next question. Very interesting question. Let's say it's an armed robber, but Philippe is an armed shepherd. He has a concealed weapon license, so he's an armed shepherd. So Yibayalu, listim mezuyim v'raya mezuyim mao. Is it an Einus? Do we say, anuki gavra lahade gavra, and therefore Philippe shouldn't get off as an Einus? Or Philippe could say, look, I'm not risking my life to take a bullet for the sheep. I'm sorry, but I want to attend Rabbi Weiss Yeshurim for the next 50 years. Right? Oidilma, Hai Maser Nafshe, the bandit will risk his life. It's not Philippe's responsibility. Says the Gemara, that's a good. The Gemara again sides with Philippe. They want Philippe to be around for a while. Says the Gemara, Mistavid Hai Maser Nafshe v'Hai Loi Maser Nafshe. Amalei Abaya l'Rava. Abaya now says to Rava, listen to this, Philippe. You got to watch what you say. Ashkechei Raya, if Philippe bumps into a bandit, he bumps into a thief, V'amalei, and he says to the thief, Gan Vasaya, you rotten bandit, you sour bandit, don't even think of coming near our encampment. Bedukta Planya Yasminan, we're set up in the Oakmont fields. Kach v'kach gavra, I have this and this amount of men. Ba'adon. Kach v'kach kalbi, can I have this and this amount of dogs. Ba'adon. And kach v'kach zukta psikalon, and we have this and this amount of slingshot experts. And what does the thief do? V'azal v'shakomine. He comes and he robs some sheep. What's the din? Amalei, Philippe, you have to know how to keep your mouth shut. Amalei, Hari Halichan, Lamakam Gedudei Chayav, and that's like taking the animal into a bad neighborhood, because he invited the bandit and concealed and revealed the bandit where they are, and therefore he would be responsible. And I would imagine this is true even if he's a Shomer Chinam, because that's considered a pshia. We'll just pause a moment to change the channel over here, Rabbi Isai.